Good evening, I'm John Carter. Welcome to Poland Daily. Today, the government adopted a draft for the legislation raising the penalties for the penal code for child sexual abuse. Crimes of paedophilia will be punished far more severely. The maximum sentence for child rape will be raised to 30 years imprisonment, and paedophile-related crimes will not have any statute of limitations.
The proposed changes will increase the penalties for child sexual abuse. There will be criminal procedures strengthened for handling those crimes to ensure justice for the victims and society. The criminal code will have a change in the maximum penalty for the child sexual abuse from 20 years to 30 years. We will make it obligatory for sentenced offenders not to be able to work with children. There will be an easier provision for the courts to increase the penalty for repeat offenders and also to extend the time to wait for annulment of such conviction from the person's criminal record. We will also have obligatory prohibition of parole for prisoners sentenced to life after a criminal conviction for any other crime. Now, when the Parliament will discuss and approve such legislation, it will become a firm foundation for prosecutors, judges and courts. Up to now, we have heard way too often about sexual abuse cases leading to very light sentences, which were outrageously unjust. We want to change it now, and this bill draft will become a better law and subsequently more justice.
Właściwych do odpowiednich decyzji surowego karania tego typu przestępców.
The recently released documentary Tell No One, detailing the sexual abuse of children by Polish priests, has many people wondering if the film will be the trigger for a purification of the Catholic Church.
The documentary Tell No One, describing pedophilia in the Polish Catholic Church, gathered over 12 million views in merely 3 days. The fight against pedophilia in the church cannot end on 1 or 2 priests getting expelled from priesthood. The bishops should also take responsibility for either pretending not to know or hiding the criminals in cassocks. That's when I can say that the church has taken the matter seriously. According to Tomasz Rawinski from the Christianitas Quarterly, the documentary of the Sekielski brothers is a chance for the bishops to swiftly react to what they saw and revise all the sexual abuse cases which took place in the Polish church in the past few decades. It's the only way right now to take away all the arguments of the church's critics, who are all attacking the institution with full force, but then again, it's hard to blame them. I'd expect the church's hierarchy to dynamically approach the matter and show that even if the church had its time of weakness, it still has its spiritual strength and is capable of seriously tackling the issue. Apologies will no longer do. Taking action is the only thing that will. The question is, will the shock and debate caused by the film Tell No One lead to the purification of the Polish Church from pedophilia? It's a pity it only came out now. A pity because the consequences of the tragedy of priest pedophilia are dramatic and they will be worse. We have more important questions to raise, meaning what will happen to the Catholic Church in Poland in the coming years. Will we share the fate of Ireland, Belgium, Netherlands, Australia, or will we salvage what we can? Some of the priests shown in the Sekielski brothers production were once registered as the secret collaborators of the Communist Security Service. The authors of the film admitted to knowing this, but said they didn't touch the subject since the film was strictly about pedophilia.
The Parliamentary Investigative Commission on VAT Extortion and Excise Duty heard sworn evidence from the former Prime Minister of Poland, Ewa Kopacz. The Civic Platform politician gave a real show of overconfidence less than 2 weeks before the elections to the European Parliament. Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orbán met with US President Donald Trump at the White House. This was Orbán's first visit to Washington for 20 years.
The media called this visit the end of an ice age between the United States and Hungary.
Well, people have a lot of respect for this Prime Minister. He's a respected man, and I know he's a tough man, but he's a respected man, and he's done the right thing, according to many people, on immigration.
Both politicians were showing a great amount of courtesy towards one another.
Probably, like me, a little bit controversial, but that's okay. That's okay.
President, thank you very much for the invitation.
Thank you.
May I just say here that we are proud that so many Hungarians contributed to the tremendous progress of the United States. I'm very happy to be here again. May I say to be young again. I was 20 years ago.
Both politicians share common views on illegal migration. Orbán was one of the European politicians who firmly stood up against the mass influx of migrants from Asia and Africa to the European Union in the summer of 2015.
We are proud to stand together with the United States on fighting against illegal migration, on terrorism, and to protect and help the Christian communities all around the world.
Orban stated that one of the other goals of his visit is to engage the United States in Central Europe. The Hungarian Prime Minister wanted to debate the energy policy and the purchases of military equipment.
Kept your country safe. We'll be discussing NATO. As you know, Hungary is a proud member of NATO, and we've really gotten to know each other a little bit. We'll be discussing trade, very much so.
Viktor Orban is yet another Central Eastern European leader to visit the White House. Previously, Donald Trump welcomed the Prime Minister of the Czech Republic and the President of Slovakia. Polish President Andrzej Duda is set to visit Washington in June.
Thank you very much for joining me here this evening at Poland Daily. I'm John Carter. Stay tuned after the break for Poland Daily Weather. It's followed by the business, culture, history and finally the travel.
Welcome to Poland Daily Weather. Let's take a look at the forecast for tonight. An overcast night across the country except to the northwest, where we will see the cloudless sky. Temperature will range between 2 degrees in Poznań, Wrocław and Zielona Góra to 6 degrees in Warszawa, Lublin and Koszalin. Heavy rainfall is expected on the south and in central Poland. And now over to tomorrow. Rainy day ahead of us. Rainfall is expected almost in every region except Koszalin and Szczecin. There we will see plenty of sunlight. Temperatures will range from 10 degrees in Wrocław and Zielona Góra to 18 degrees in Białystok. Let's see the forecast for the following 3 days. On Thursday, thunderstorms will appear in central and on the southeast. Friday will be a stormy day as well. More sunlight is expected on the north. On Saturday, temperatures will rise to 24 degrees. Little storm will appear around Rzeszów, but otherwise it will be a very sunny day. Thank you for watching and goodbye.
You're watching Poland Daily Business. Tonight we are at Katowice, European Economic Congress, and we'll speak about Ethiopia. Our guest is Mr. Araya Kidane from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Ethiopian government. Sir, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, sir.
You come from Ethiopia here to find out the business partnerships, but also to look for ways to attract tourists from Poland to Ethiopia. And Poles know that this is one of the oldest Christian countries in the world. Ethiopia, 2,000 years of Christian kingdom, is amazing history.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you very much. One of the most interesting tourist destination in Ethiopia is the religious sites all over the country, mostly in the northern part of the world. Ethiopia has more than 9 UNESCO registered tourism sites, whereby most of the tourists are coming from Europe and America. And we believe that most Polish people would like to see the Ethiopian destinations. Yeah.
Do you find a similarity between Polish nation and our culture and Ethiopian?
Yes, of course. Yeah, there is most of the not only the Polish, but also most of the Central European countries are Christians, and we believe that Ethiopia will be one of the attracting the Polish people, and we have some similarities where we got it that in the 1970s, 60s, many Ethiopian students came here to study in Poland universities and colleges, and some of them are still living here with the Polish people, and through our diaspora people, we had a very good chance to know about Poland, and your embassy in Poland, in Addis Ababa, is also working good to promote Poland culture and tradition, and occasionally there was a chance, I myself had a chance to see and to visit and to know Poland culture, which seems to have similarities. And I think and I believe that Ethiopia would be one of the best destinations in that part of the world.
We are a much younger nation than Ethiopians, but we believe that our national identity, the values we have, is very much tied to the Christian faith, to basic Catholic religion, but generally the Christian faith. Is the same feeling in Ethiopia?
Yes, of course, yeah. So Ethiopia is as one of the oldest civilized nations. We have so many old monasteries, churches, and
the people are still practicing, and this is important to them.
It's still practicing, yes.
But you are the country, similarly to Poland, that over recent 20, 30 years experiences rapid development in economy. I mean, if you've been in Poland 15 years ago and you are now, you see the difference by your own eyes. And to some extent, this development, there are people in Poland who are saying that being modern means that you should lose your identity, you should lose your Catholic faith, and because this somehow contradicts the economical development. There, obviously, the conservative government that is now in power does not believe in that. They say we can be perfectly modern and perfectly Catholic, and there's no contradiction. Is the same discussion in Ethiopia right now?
Yes, of course. I had a chance to visit Poland when I was in Berlin as a diplomat representing my country. And the Ethiopian embassy in Berlin covers Poland and Czech Republic. It was during the 90s, the beginning of 90s, and I had a chance to visit what Poland was during the beginning of 90s, and now I can compare how Poland changes for the good. And even our country in the 90s, and now there's a big change. And of course, the Christian faith was in Ethiopia, and in Poland, it's almost similar. I think previously the two countries were following some kind of a communist phase, and now things are changing. But also the Christianity phase still preserves in both Poland and Ethiopia.
But do you have in Ethiopia people who say, let's get rid of this Christian tradition because it hurts the development and we will not be modern country if we stay the old way?
No way. Ethiopia still, the Christianity would preserve our culture and tradition. And if you see, even the younger generation, you can follow the Christian faith and also be diligent to the development aspirations. You can aspire development as well as keep your Christian faith. And this is even we are organizing as much before religious trips to different sites and monasteries, churches. Mm-hmm. And it was built even long time ago in the northern part of our country. And the tour operators and travel agents are now organizing these kind of trips in the so-called religious tourism.
Are you not afraid of the massive tourism, the sites like Venice in Europe, when the natives are in minority. Millions of people are walking on the streets, on the pavements. Does it hurt? I mean, it obviously brings money, but there are things associated with it, like heavy drinking of the tourists, like some kind of entertainment that may not necessarily be welcomed by locals.
Yeah, our tourism department is wisely coordinated and is said as the Ministry of Culture and Tourism. There is a culture part and also the tourism part, which coordinates. And there is awareness program how to host tourists, as well as, tourism is, we believe, is one of the way of development, but also keeping our tradition and culture. And
Yes.
it's well coordinated.
Okay.
And we don't see any problem in, having more and more tourists.
Yeah, well, otherwise, this is a big country, so
Yeah,
the millions can come and will not be noticed. Sir, thank you very much. I
Thank
hope your
you,
mission
excellent.
here
Thank you.
will be successful, and indeed, Ethiopia will enjoy biggest influx of Polish tourists, and our mutual trade will also grow, because this is an important place of Africa and important place of the world. So I think we are bound to cooperate more closely. Mr.
Thank you.
Araya Kidane of
Thank you, sir.
Ethiopian Ministry of Foreign Affairs was our guest tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.
And that's it for tonight's Poland Daily Business.
Welcome back to Poland Daily Weather. Let's take a look at the forecast for tomorrow. Rainy day ahead of us. Rainfall is expected almost in every region except Koszalin and Szczecin. There we will see plenty of sunlight. Temperatures will range from 10 degrees in Wrocław and Zielona Góra to 18 degrees in Białystok. Let's see the forecast for the following 3 days. On Thursday, thunderstorms will appear in central and on the southeast. Friday will be a stormy day as well. More sunlight is expected on the north. On Saturday, temperatures will rise to 24 degrees. Little storm will appear around Rzeszów, but otherwise it will be a very sunny day. Thank you for watching and goodbye.
It was first built between 1671 and 1679 by Stanisław Heraclius Lubomirski to designs by the Dutch architect Tilman van Gameren. This complex included a garden. The town had passed to the Sieniawski family by 1706, when the palace and its surroundings were destroyed by Swedish troops during the Great Northern War. Reconstruction began under Elżbieta Sieniawska in 1722. Soon afterwards, Maria Zofia Czartoryska married August Alexander Czartoryski, and between 1731 and 1736, they built a new Rococo palace on the site to designs by Jan Zygmunt Debel. At the turn of the 18th and 19th centuries, Puławy was the center of political, cultural, and literary life. It happened thanks to Adam Kazimierz Czartoryski and his wife Isabella from Fleming, who brought the most outstanding artists, Jan Piotr Norblin, writers, Julian Ursin Nimcewicz, and architects, Christian Piotr Eigner, to the Puławski court. It was here, in the Temple of Sibyl of 1801 and the Gothic House of 1809, that the Duchess created the first museum in Poland. It has become the nucleus of a great collection cultivated to this day. At the end of the November uprising, the Czartoryski property was confiscated, and the Czartoryski family emigrated to Paris. In Puławy, the Alexandria Institute for the Education of Maidens was established, and subsequently the Polytechnic and Agricultural Forestry Institute and the Institute of Rural Land and Forests. Currently, the owner of the palace and park complex is the Institute of Soil Science.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Poland Daily Culture. Today we will be exploring the history of the Czartoryski family at their palace in Puławy, Poland. Let's go inside. In the second part of today's program, we will be discussing the history of the Czartoryski Palace with Mrs. Grażyna Bartnik. Dzień dobry, witamy serdecznie.
Good morning. What is the history of the palace?
Kiedy powstał?
The Puławski Palace was built in the beginning of the 17th century, when the owner of the Puławskis' wealth and the whole of the Końskowolski key area, since the Puławy region was part of the Końskowolski wealth, was the great royal court-marshal Stanisław Lubomirski. It was he who ordered to build an estate with defense structures on the edge of the Vistula slope. In the hallway of the palace there is a model of the fortified residence, so people could see how it looked like. It was constructed in an Italian style with 4 alcoves. The Lubomirski family was also famous for its cultural activity in Poland. Lubomirski's wife, Zofia, from the house of Opalińscy, was one of the most educated women in Poland at the time. Another family which owned the Końskowolski key was the Sieniawscy family. Elżbieta Sieniawska expanded the palace. However, an unfortunate and tragic incident occurs. The Swedish soldiers destroyed the palace during the Northern War. It was burned down to the crisp. For several years it remained unrepaired. It took for the daughter of Elżbieta Sieniawska, Maria Sieniawska, who later married August Alexander Czartoryski, to expand the palace for her own needs. Since 1730 the palace was owned by the Czartoryski family for nearly 100 years. So we could say that since that time the Czartoryski family had the Puławski Palace for themselves. When the palace was reconstructed, was all of it renovated, and were there big changes done to it at the time?
Oczywiście zmiany były konieczne, tak jak
There were many changes. Like I said, it was destroyed during the Northern War, so the whole building needed many repairs. Today there are no representative stairs, the external stairs. I will mention them in a bit. The Czartoryski family rebuilt the palace. When the Czartoryska princess settled here in Puławy, she rebuilt the palace for her own needs as well. There were mentions of the right wing of the palace never being finished. In the right wing of the palace there were apartments of the Prince Adam Kazimierz Czartoryski, so the husband of the Princess Izabela. The left wing, on the other hand, belonged to the after-mentioned Princess Izabela Czartoryska. She also had an orangery next to it. She could enter it from her apartment or even from her bedroom. Her passion was also the palace garden. She adapted the garden to the trends popular at the time. She was amazed with the nearby landscapes, the classical English romantic landscapes. Thanks to that, she brought fame to the Puławy region. So not only with museology, but also with her art of gardening.
nie tylko na polu muzealnictwa, ale też na polu sztuki ogrodowej.
What state institutions were here in the palace? When Czartoryscy leave Puławy after the November uprising, the Tsar Institute for the Upbringing of Ladies were placed here. It was an elite school for young girls, and that's when the palace was also rebuilt for the educational purposes. The more representative halls of the palace also burned at the time, due to a fire started accidentally by the girls. The external stairs were removed, and an inside footbridge staircase was put in its place. When the fire broke out, the footbridge sets on fire as well, since it was originally made of wood. The staircase, which we will see in a moment, was constructed after the fire by the State Machine Factory in Solec in Warsaw, and it was made out of cast iron. When was the museum opened to the public? The museum was opened to the public in 2009 as the division of the Vistula Museum in Kazimierz Dolny. Our institution, on the other hand, is up and running since 2017 and is the city institution. Are you currently cooperating with the Czartoryski Museum in Krakow, which will be opened once again in December? Yes, we are cooperating with the National Museum in Krakow. We borrow many exhibits and collections from them. Our whole exhibition is based on the Krakow collection. But we also work with other museums. The Zamoyscy Museum in Kozłówka, from where we also borrow exhibits. If you could say a few words about the Czartoryscy family, the Princess Izabela and Prince Adam Czartoryski, about their lives here. The Princess Izabela, when she married Adam Kazimierz, was perceived to be an uneducated woman or even a little girl. We should add that she was 15 years old at the time. However, people couldn't be further from the truth about her. Apart from the fact that she was taught by her own private teachers, she was also incredibly intelligent from the moment she was born. You could argue that she was more intelligent, or at least she knew more about art than her own husband. Here in Puławy, her knowledge and wisdom blossomed. Here, the first ever National Museum was created in the Sibylla Temple, in the Gothic house. When Poland lost its independence, the princess wrote this in her memoirs. "Dear motherland, I couldn't save you. Let me at least immortalize you." It was the beginning of an incredible collection which we could call not only a Polish, but a worldly collection. In the Sibylla Temple, the princess gathered national treasures, but in the Gothic house, she also kept ancient artifacts of all the European countries, and even some brought from the United States. In the collection, there is, for example, a branch from the cedar tree, which was planted at the tomb of the first American president, George Washington. There are also buttons from his coat. In Krakow, there's also the chair that belonged to Shakespeare. So the collection was very rich. Princess Izabela Czartoryska is known as one of the first creators of Polish museums, but she's also famous for her gardening. She was in love with natural English-style gardens. She once took her son, Adam Jerzy, for a journey across England and Scotland, where she was in awe of romantic landscape. At the time, the typical well-organized French gardens were dominating in Europe, and the princess did not like those at all. She once wrote in her book on gardens, "The unnatural things can never come to any liking." Therefore, she ordered the complete change of the garden and bought plants not only from Poland, but also from all over the world. Poet Julian Ursyn Niemcewicz, who was friends with the princess, sent her plants from the United States as well. The garden gained a new look, completely natural and without set borders. It stretched for miles and was part of nearby villages and towns, which were neighboring the Puławy. Did the gardens remain unchanged to this day, or do they look different today?
Sam ogród przypałacowy to jest około 30 do 34 hektarów.
The palace's garden itself is between 30-34 hectares big, so it's definitely smaller than in Princess Izabela's time. Back then, it covered the nearby villages and towns too. There is a village called Parchatka near Puławy, and it was the princess's most favorite place. She often organized picnics, court meetings, and dinners there. Characteristic for the village were its ravines and gullies, so the princess ordered to build little bridges over them. There was also a little house where there were different pieces of garden art inside. Porcelain from the house remained to this day, with the village's name engraved into it. Some of these pieces of porcelain you could see at our exhibition. But getting back to Izabela's gardening passion, it led her to write a book on gardening, and she in a way taught all Poles the art, which plants to choose, and how to compose nice gardens. Apart from gardening, Princess Izabela loved to write. She wrote the first history book for children from villages in the history of Poland. As farmers were poorly educated back then, she wanted to improve that. The book was entitled The Pilgrim in Dobromil, or The Village Teachings. In a nearby village, she also founded a school for farmers' children, where they learned not only about Polish history, but also had regular lessons on all subjects, so they could receive even the most basic education.
O historii Polski, ale też takich codziennych zajęć przystosowanych właśnie dla każdego chłopca czy dla każdej dziewczynki.
Thank you for joining us today and see you soon on our next episode of Poland Daily Culture. Goodbye.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Poland Daily History. Today we are at the city of Warsaw, particularly the region that was transformed into the Jewish ghetto during the Second World War by the German occupants. Today we will be speaking with our guest, Mr. Artur Grubniewski, a tourist guide and historian, about the 1,000 years of Polish Jewish history. Around the 19th century, Poland is known to have the largest population of Jews in the world, but after that they started immigrating to other countries, and I was wondering if you can tell me where are they going, for what reasons do they make that decision?
Exactly. When we talk about 19th century in Poland, we talk about three countries, but no Poland, so Prussia, Russia and Austria.
All right.
So these Polish people, Christian and Jewish, were emigrating indeed to another countries because of the difficulties that they were facing in here. About 2 million of people in late 1800s, early 1900s emigrated to the US, another 500,000 to Canada, and other destinations were Brazil, and also after World War I, the idea of creating an independent state of Israel comes back. So in a moment when French and English enter territory of Ottoman Empire, they start dividing that land into Syria, Iraq, Lebanon, and then there is less and less land that stays for few more nations that previously were living freely in all the area of Ottoman Empire. So the territory of Palestine was divided into Jordan, which is pretty big country of Jordan nowadays, and then it turns out that this little piece of land is left for the Israelis, so the Jewish state will be retrieved once again. Jewish people will have their own country, but it's supposed to be for the Palestinians as well. So with such creation, we are doomed to have conflicts over there because Palestinians never lived in such a small piece of land before, and so as when it comes to big Jewish nation, they have to actually share very similar piece of land, separated with the walls in many places.
So you were telling me that the Jews started to immigrate into Israel, but it wasn't an independent state at the time. And I was wondering, when did the independent state of Israel establish?
So we must know that for Jews, this is very important, that the real state of Israel has never disappeared. Like for Polish people, we know that there was no Poland on the maps, but we know that there was Poland. Same for the Jews, but their state in a, let's say, official words map was not existing for like 2,000 years, which makes this history even more amazing this way. And then World War II happened.
Of course.
and Holocaust, and now it starts to be obvious that this real formal creation with its own government is needed very much. With a different points of view, and these different points of view were created in Poland in between World War I and World War II. So there were many different political countries that were defining Judaism in a different way.
Yeah.
And that was the different ways provided by the Jews about themselves. And that was the freedom that we finally could have in Poland. And then it was moved to Israel when the independent state was created on 12th of May, 1948. At the beginning, a lot of Polish Jews over there, so Polish language was very common. They were even thinking of adopting Polish language as their national language, not Hebrew. And it was just a very little difference during the votes, when it comes to counting the votes, which will be the official one in Israel. And official founder of the state, Ben Gurion, there is Ben Gurion Airport in Tel Aviv. He came from Poland. And this is our in common history.
Jewish immigration to the Promised Land increased significantly after the birth of Zionism as a political movement at the end of the 19th century. However, an independent Jewish state was first created after the Second World War. Next up, we will ask Mr. Gronewski about the contribution of Polish Jews in the early years of its existence. You were telling me that a lot of the Polish Jews immigrated to different countries at the time, and I would imagine that it must have a ripple effect and they would go on to have impact on the rest of the world. I was wondering if you can tell me some of the more prominent figure that is the result of these Polish Jews immigrating to other parts of the world.
Well, that's a great question, Ben, and thank you very much. So many people come to my mind. I love to talk about movie industry, and in between World War I and World War II, once again, that our little golden age, when words movie industry was going into different directions. Then that was Polish direction, and very much affected by Polish Jews, of course, that eventually became very important till nowadays. So in a moment when in Germany we were having mostly horror movies, in Sweden more like geographical thing, in France they were more sort of impressionistic ideas movies.
Sure.
Then in Russia these were mostly propaganda movies. In the US these were movies about a person like Charlie Chaplin
Sure.
or Pola Negri. So it was the industry was about a person.
Right. Biographical kind of movies.
Exactly. And then in Poland we started to make movies about regular life.
Interesting.
Does it sound familiar?
Yeah.
I love watching Friends, for instance. And Warner Brothers.
Those were the Polish Jews.
Those were the Polish Jews who emigrated, and their ideas brought from Poland adopted very well in the US. So that very big movie industry, very big movie American industry, so that very big American Jewish industry has its original origins in Poland, and we are so proud of it. And the next person I would like to mention is Maksymilian Faktorowicz, a Polish guy. He emigrates to Russia, then quickly he goes to America, St. Louis, Missouri, 1904, and he invents mascara. He establishes a company of Maksymilian Faktorowicz Cosmetics.
Oh.
And then they told him, hey man, the name is too long and so difficult for us to pronounce.
Right.
Could you make it a little bit shorter? Yes, of course, Max Factor Cosmetics.
Max Factor.
Exactly. And we are proud of these people, like of Polish people. And I'm 100% sure that these people were thinking of themselves, I am a Pole, I am a Jew, I want Poland to grow, I want Jewish nation to grow, I want an entire planet Earth to grow. And these are our in common roots.
Right.
And when it comes to nowadays separate Polish-Israeli or Polish-Jewish conversations, I would like very much to start these conversations with our in common roots.
Right.
things that we agree with, and then maybe go through much more difficult parts of our history.
Exactly. You can start by the parts where the Polish and Jewish history are so intertwined and take from each other's culture and start the conversation from there.
Yes, exactly. And this is what we tour guides may only wish when it comes to our politicians, because we have a lot of guests from Israel right now. They are coming in here. Some of them have non-Jewish, so Goy guides, and we are very happy to provide these tours to Israelis. There are a lot of Israeli guides in Warsaw, and I would like to say that I met some of them, and I like them very much.
As we can see, Poland has been for centuries the safe haven for Jews fleeing persecution. During the 18th and 19th centuries, the city has the largest amount of Jewish population in all of Europe. The two nations coexisted in peace until the Germans conducted the Holocaust. That's it for today. I'm your host, Benjamin Lee. I'll see you next time on Poland Daily History.
Łazienki Park, Łazienki Park Królewskie. Those names mean something to everyone in Poland. This green expanse is inseparable from the history not only of Warsaw, but of the country. It is here that leisure time is spent by families, friends, lovers, students, and sportsmen. It's a park for everyone, but it didn't start out that way. It started out as the very special province of the Lubomirski family. Later, King Poniatowski made the park his own, and it was really during the late 18th century that the greater proportion of buildings were constructed. There is the Palace on the Water, of course, a classic building of its kind, not only in Poland, but in Europe. The palace seems to float on an island in its reflecting pools. Meanwhile, the 70-odd park is a conglomeration of forest and lake and sculpted gardens, dominated on one end by the ancient Ujazdowski Castle and on the other by the Belvedere Palace, the residence of the president. The park remains the greenest spot in any city in Poland, and as a park comparable to the best of those in any capital in Europe. So sit back as Poland Daily Travel takes you for a tour of the highlights of Łazienki Park in the heart of beautiful downtown Warsaw. Poland Daily Travel brings you the best and most comprehensive programming about travel in Poland that you're ever likely to find. Watch Poland Daily Travel and like us on YouTube, and if you really like us, subscribe. So let's watch A Walk in the Park with Poland Daily Travel in Łazienki Królewskie in beautiful downtown Warsaw. Thank you very much. Good coffee. Let's try it. Smells good. Very nice. Thank you. Where's Peter? Oh, there he is. Let's go find Peter. Peter. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Poland Daily. We are in Łazienki Park in Warsaw, and I'm with Peter
Chemuchowski.
Chemuchowski. It's easy for him to say. He's got a lot of experience saying Chemuchowski, Chemuchowski. There we go. It's not that hard. It's almost like Chemu. Where? It's like like
it is.
Where, isn't it?
But the spelling is different. But you're doing really great.
Where? Am I doing okay?
Yeah.
Good Lord, I need that. I need you to say that to me. It makes me feel a little better about butchering your name. But at any rate, we're walking now. We're going to go to the palace, and we're slowly making our way there. What is this?
Yeah. The stone that originally was put somewhere on the palace
Right.
during the times of the war, taken off as it's possessing some of typical Polish symbols. Pretty much what we are looking at is the coat of arms. And a question from the tour guide to you, Will, now.
Okay.
To whom is that coat of arms
I think of you as so much
devoted?
more than just a tour guide, Peter. But anyway, go ahead. What?
So, what is, you have a hint here, to
Yeah.
whom is that dedicated?
It's dedicated to a four-legged something.
Creature. So, the thing is, the hint is on the top.
Well, the king.
The king's
Must be the king.
coat of arms, as the
Yeah.
crown
Yeah.
is set on the very
it's a
top.
royal coat of arms. right?
Absolutely.
That's what
To
this
which king? We are visiting
good
the
question.
park.
I don't know. Yeah.
We are visiting the park that was arranged and bought by the last Polish king, whose name is Stanisław August Poniatowski. And what we see in the very middle is his very coat of arms. And a little question. Do you happen to know what kind of animal that is?
Unicorn.
A unicorn. One out of...
Hey, folks. I couldn't really tell. It's a bit old. I just guessed it was a unicorn. I had no idea.
And the most common guesses, unicorn or, simply speaking, the dog, while the author would like you to see...
Is it actually a unicorn?
No.
It's not.
No,
Okay, see,
it's not.
that's wrong.
It is the bull. The bull is the coat of arms of the last king. This is his symbol.
Okay.
And now a very quick explanation. Except from the bull, you're having the Lithuanian riders and the two symbols of Poland, which are the Polish eagles. And I would like you to know that this symbolizes that there is Poland and Lithuania having a union of their lands under the common ruler, which is meaning that this is the personal union.
Right.
The king is common for both. And
Okay.
this is what the very stone
And
says.
so this is a recreation or an original?
This is actually the original stone
From
tablet.
from what time?
It's the times of the king, once the whole park
So
is being
200
erected.
something, 50 years.
1764, pretty much around that date.
So
That's the time
1764.
that the park is created.
That's a long time ago. Anyway,
Over 200 years.
60 years or something. Yeah.
Absolutely.
65. Yeah. Wow. So this is the original Poniatowski rock. That's what I call it. The Poniatowski. I don't call it that, but it is that, right?
Indeed, the coat of arms.
That's amazing. But the park was not built by him.
It's, the last Polish king, Stanislaus Augustus, is the one to buy the whole territory
Yeah, okay.
of the wild forest, because that is what it is in the 18th century.
It was a big wilderness over here, right? It was a
Absolutely.
hunting preserve.
Over 70 hectares
Yeah.
of land full of wild animals ready to be hunted
70
by
hectares,
the guys
which is a
from
lot
Warsaw.
of acres. It's about twice as many acres and a little more.
I think 1,000 acres is a hectare. Mm-hmm. So, 100 acres is a
Is
hectare.
it? No, not 100 hectares. No, it's about
square.
2 something.
Maybe we can
Yeah.
Google that in
Google
the time of
that.
the need,
Who
right?
knows, who knows?
Yeah, basically.
We're not going to wrestle over it.
No, that's absolutely not.
That's
And
too far.
Another thing, if
That is
we
too far.
do not know something, we do not make stories about that,
No, we
right?
do not.
Very, very old
Yeah.
tour guiding rule.
No. Okay. I'm learning then. That's good. Because I was just going to make it all up. Yeah.
And now, Will, I
No,
think...
Lubomirski was the guy who originally had this place, wasn't it?
Pretty much.
Wasn't he
Stanisław Herakliusz Lubomirski was the owner of that land before it was the park.
That's right. Yeah, it was his, but he had it as his hunting place and whatever.
Absolutely. And
Because he was a super big magnate.
Lubomirski is the family
It's
in
a big
Poland
name, big
that's
one of the big names.
one of the top 10 most wealthy families in
Yeah.
the whole history. But
Well, that's enough about this. Hey, stay with us. And, oh, there's a bunch of kids. We could have just told them all if they speak English. But stay with me and Peter. We'll be right back. We're walking to the palace on the
Island.
water. Everybody's in Łazienki. Look at all these people. Fantastic. Be right back. right, so welcome back to Poland Daily. We're still strolling through the park here in Łazienki Królewskie, the park in the center of beautiful downtown Warsaw. I'm with Peter Ciemachowski. Yeah, that's right.
That's all right.
Yeah. I got to be careful. I said definitely the wrong thing.
You've picked the tour guide with the most difficult surname.
I almost said it backwards. Yeah, which is not easy. What's this? We're on our way to the palace over there. What's this building?
We are lucky to use the original entrance to the park, and this
the one we just came in, yeah?
The one that we just came in. This used to be the place where the guardsmen of the king would have would have their barracks, would have their place to stay in the park. The truth is that once we are arriving to the park, it's not a place which is just right around the corner from the royal castle. It is quite of a distance to make. This is why, if I'm the king and I invite you, Will, then you will come with a carriage, most likely.
Okay,
and to
with courage and a carriage.
Both.
Yeah,
yeah, absolutely, to visit the king.
Yeah, you gotta have some courage, because the king is very intimidating.
Might be.
But not Poniatowski by all accounts.
He was a connoisseur of art more than he was a muscle
tough guy, yeah.
up fellow.
He wasn't a tough guy. Catherine the Great found him a pushover, right?
So this is a very long story, right? This is a long story.
Yeah, but we can't talk about that now. Okay.
And we'll touch that later.
Okay, let's talk about the guardhouse.
But you're arriving with the courage, as we were speaking about just a moment ago, and then at the certain heights, which is pretty much in here, you're going to have the line of the trees pretty much changing a bit, because there are 3 of them missing. So if you do not have the proper invitation, what the guardsmen will do, they will ask you to politely return to where you're coming from.
If you didn't have the identification, right?
Absolutely.
Or the invitation with the royal seal or whatever it was.
Absolutely. So you need to have a sigil or any confirmation that you are the proper place.
And if you were not allowed in, what would you do with your carriage?
That's not of the business of the king.
You can't back it up.
You are going to have a very, very thoughtful thing, because these trees that used to be here, they are missing. So to allow you...
These are missing,
to return to where you're coming from.
Right.
This was actually a very, very nice logistics, very simple, but also very functional, because a little bit further, if you would go, you already have the people that are, let's say, accepted. They are very prestigious and from the very close neighborhood and surroundings of the king.
Very good. Okay. So let's keep walking and
absolutely
and get to the palace.
Yes, please.